Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network's YouTube channel. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can find us on Facebook and stay up to date on our Facebook group, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for podcasts, hosts, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good day, afternoon, or night, wherever you might be on the spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's special reports of the seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Meckes. If this is your first time watching, please click subscribe, like, share, comment, and also don't forget to listen wherever you listen to your podcasts. An instruction in Septemics, a philosophical science. Welcome back. This is 14, and if you haven't gotten your book yet, get your book. You can find it Amazon. I got this on Amazon. And or your website at septemics.com, and let me bring that up right now. That way people know where to find it. But we are going to go over this is part 14 of Septemics, book 2, group scales, chapter 8 and possibly 9. But today let me bring in, before we kind of jump into this, Septemics is a philosophical science, hierarchies of human phenomenon analysis, prediction and management of human affairs with Jim Marshall, founder and creator of Septemics and author of the book, Septemics. And before we start, let's do a recap and introduction.
Okay. Hi, Paul. Well, for those of you who don't know me, I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena, which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I created a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics and published it in the book he just referenced. Today we're going to look at some of the content of that book.
Yeah, and boy, do we really need to understand human beings. Very, very critical. So let me bring this up here. Aha, there we go. So we are starting on the scale of communication, chapter 8 of book 2, which is also in the same book when you get your book, if you haven't gotten it already. All right, Jim, let's jump into it.
Okay. Well, it will be difficult to exaggerate the importance of communication to humans. Most of the problems that people have with one another are because of their communication skills are lacking. And this chapter resolves that issue. It tells you exactly what communication consists of, how it works, what you have to do to make it succeed. Now, this is a linear scale, meaning there's no apparent congruence between levels 1 and 7, as there would be in a spiral scale. This is a quantum scale, meaning there's nothing between these levels. So you're either at level 2 or you're at level 3. There's no 2.5 as in a gradual scale. And it's a specific scale, meaning you could analyze your communication in different contexts. How is your communication in your profession? How's your communication in your love life? How's your communication with your buddies, and so forth? So you could have different levels for different contexts, which makes it even more useful. Now, notice there on the right, it says direction. And below that, it says plus, minus, and so forth. So I've mentioned this before in this series, but the plus and minus, it doesn't mean good or bad. What it means is inflow or outflow. So plus is an outflow. Now, in this universe, you're either inflowing or you're outflowing. Like when you breathe in, you breathe out. You breathe in, you breathe out. Or you have water in your pipes. It goes in, it goes out. It goes in, it goes out. So 7 of the scales in this book have this component built into them of inflow, outflow, where the levels alternate between inflow, outflow. In other words, when you are at level 1, you are outflowing. When you are at level 2, you are inflowing. And when you are at level 3, you're outflowing, and so forth. So you see, this is a very natural thing where you outflow and then you inflow. And I'll explain that as we go through it. So that's what that means, outflow and inflow. Or if you want to put it in a behavioral context, you could say reach or withdraw. So it's easier to see this if you think of it in terms of when your communication is reaching someone as opposed to withdrawing from someone. See, like, for example, level 2 is observation. Well, when you are observing, you are inflowing data, which means you are withdrawn. You're not outflowing, as opposed to in level 5, for example, expression that is clearly an outflow. You tell a person something. Yes, I like chocolate. Okay.
Yeah.
So some of it is inflow and some of it. Now, you have to realize you need a balance of both. You can't just outflow, outflow, outflow and not inflow, and the reverse is also true. So when you see people who are highly skilled at communication, you can see they will outflow, they will inflow, they will outflow, they will inflow. Now, if you have some kind of a sort of a domineering bully type, he is outflowing, 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 outflowing. Or if you could have sort of a wallflower type who's inflowing all the time. Neither of those work. That's not communication. In order to communicate, you have to outflow and then inflow, and then outflow and then inflow. Now, this scale is very different from all the other scales. Now, I have stated hundreds of times in all my appearances that every scale is unique. This scale is conspicuously different from the others. And you'll see, if you study this vis-a-vis the other scales, you'll see it's quite different. This is how successful communication occurs. Now, on the left, it says action. So there are 7 actions necessary to communication. 4 of them are outflow, 3 of them are inflow. So when you start to communicate properly or optimally, you always start at level 1. And then you go to 2, and then you go to 3, and then you go to 4, and eventually you get to 7, which is termination. Well, that's the end of that communication cycle. Now, you have to realize only 2 of these levels actually have talking in them. That's 5 and 6. 5 and 6, you must talk. The other 5 levels, there's really no talking to speak of. Some of them have no talking at all, and some of them have, it's kind of a substitute for talking. And what I mean by this is, take level 4, encouragement. So if you're encouraging someone, you can just nod, say, see, like you just did.
Yeah.
You have to encourage the person.
Body expressions, pantomimes.
It could go to the extent of saying, go on. Now you're using words there, but it's pretty minimal. Similarly, in level 7, termination, there's not a lot of talking. You just end it. You say, okay. Now you see, that okay was delivered in a very different way from It's very different.
Or the traditional handshake.
You mean as an encouragement?
Yeah, for the termination. You know, when a deal is terminated or when something is
Okay,
terminated, you
yeah,
do the handshake. That means
okay. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that because handshaking kind of went out of style with COVID.
yeah.
We stopped handshaking, and a lot of us just haven't started it again. So it kind of went away. It's become a vestige of the past.
Yeah, the fist bump.
Right. So, anyway, let's go through this. Now, I give very clear examples in the chapter. So, if you get the book, read the chapter, there's several explanations of how it's supposed to go, and when it goes awry, why it's going awry. So, in order to have successful communication over any period of time, you must do these 7 things in this order. It's like a recipe. If you're going to make an omelet, you need certain things. It doesn't matter how many eggs you have if you have no butter. You have to have a certain amount of butter. You have to have the right amount of butter. Having 2 pounds of butter doesn't help you because you only need 1 pat. You see?
Yeah.
And that's how this is. So this is a recipe for communication. So let's start at level 1. The first thing you have to do if you're going to communicate is be present. Ever talk to somebody who is not there?
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is obvious in a person who's unconscious or a person who's catatonic. But sometimes you can see the person is just like a space cadet. His body is in the room, but he's not. So presence is being there. That is an outflow. When you be there, it's an outflow. And if you're really good at this, people see it. It's like you can see you have an impact on the person that you outflow to them by being present. So people who are very good communicators are present. They're there.
Yeah.
Now, after you are present, next thing you do, because you're present, you have the capacity to observe, which is level 2. Level 2 is an inflow, observing, and the synonym for it is inspection, it's the same thing, is inflowing. So first you must be present, then you observe. You can't observe if you're not present. So if you have somebody who's whacked out on drugs, he's on Mars somewhere, we don't know where he is. So he's not inspecting. It's really important before you open your mouth to inspect. Look at the person. Is this person ready for this communication? Very often I'll have sort of, when I meet somebody, I'll have sort of an agenda in mind. Like I want to talk about a certain aspect of the business, or I want to raise but I'll look at the person and I'll say, this person is not ready for this. And I'm done. That's it.
Yeah.
So think about this. Let's say a guy has some woman that he knows, right? And he likes her. And he decides he wants to ask her out, right? So he sees her. And when he observes her, he can see from what he observes, she doesn't want to talk about this today. You see?
Yeah.
Maybe she's hungover. Maybe she's upset because her son is missing. See? Could be 1,000 different things. The point is, you inspect. You inspect the person. Most people don't do this. They just go blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
See, a smart communicator, before he opens his mouth, he observes. Who is this person? What does this person want? What is this person's intention? See, what is this about? Very important. You save yourself a lot of trouble by observing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to 3, which is poise. Poise is an outflow. You know how in beauty contests, they have the girls, walk around and such. Well, poise is always a big thing that the judges talk about. They say, well, number 6 had excellent poise. She's not as pretty as number 5, but her poise is better. Well, poise is composure. You want to be composed. You don't want to look like a nutcase or something. So, perfect example. Our current president of the United States, just look at him. He's not composed. I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw him composed. It was many years ago, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. Long time ago.
Doesn't, Even when he's not sticking his foot in his mouth, you can see he's not composed. His mouth is open, his eyes are staring, he has an unfriendly demeanor about him. That's not poise. You have to show yourself to be a composed person, somebody that people are going to want to communicate with. They're going to want to hear from you, and they're going to want to tell you things, both. Okay? So that's a big outflow. You outflow composure. So if you're not composed, you shouldn't be talking because you're not prepared to talk. Now,
Yeah.
after you are composed, the next thing is you encourage the person. Most people don't have a clue about this. Before you make your point, which is level 5, you encourage the person. You can do it by smiling. You can do it by complimenting the person. See, you meet Joe, you say, "Hello, Joe, you look very happy today," or "You look fit today," or something. See, that's an encouragement. Or, "I'm very glad to see you, Joe." That's an encouragement. See, an encouragement is an invitation. You're inviting the person to communicate with you. If you don't do that, the person is not likely to engage you. So, if you want somebody to get the message you're going to deliver at level 5, first you encourage the person. So, you see this all the time from people who are good at this. You might say, "Oh, hello, Mrs. Smith. How are you today? How's the family?" See, that's encouragement. That kind of invites the person to communicate with you. It's an inflow.
Yeah.
You're inflowing, you're putting this inflow there to make it easy for the person to talk to you. See? Then, once you've done all of that, so you haven't really said anything yet. You may have used a word in encouragement, but usually in encouragement, you can get by without saying any words. You can just say, uh-huh, mm-hmm,
Hmm.
okay. See, just a little something to get the person to feel that you are a recipient for communication, that you're not dangerous, you're not an opponent.
Yeah.
See, so you encourage the person. Then, after you encourage the person, then you tell them what you want to tell them. See, then you
Yeah.
say, Mary, uh, I'd like to take you out for dinner. How would you feel about that? See, that's an expression. You're conveying something. That's an outflow. You're
Yeah.
delivering your message. But before you got to that, you went through 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you see, most of successful communication is the things that happen before and after the expression.
Mm.
Expression is only one of 7 levels. Most people don't know that. They just have some agenda in mind and they just blurt it out.
Mm.
Then, after you express it, then you inflow. You want to see what the response is. What is this person's response? Pay attention. Does Mary light up like a Christmas tree when you invite out for dinner? Or does she look kind of not too positive about it? See?
Yeah.
So there's a response. Now, part of the response is handling. Handling. So you tell your coworker, "Smith, today I would like you to balance the books." Right? You're conveying something. Now, Smith might say, "Well, I'd be happy to do that, but I really don't feel well. I think I have a cold coming on. I have a headache." See, you have to handle that. You have to
Mhm.
say something. You can't just push that aside. That makes him an opponent. You
Yeah.
have to handle it. So you say to him, "Well, uh, I have some Tylenol here. Would you like some?" He might say yes. All right, you get him a glass of water and some Tylenol. Here, maybe this will help you with your headache. See, now he's more willing to work with you. Not only is he better able to work with you, see, because you've handled it, that was a good response. Right? Like if your wife says to you, I'm not happy with the way our relationship is going. Oh boy, you better respond to that
Yeah. Right.
right away. You better handle it. Say,
Yeah.
tell me about that. What's going on? What seems to be the situation? See? And if you handle it like that, it's a good response. You're responding to her, see? And then she's willing to communicate to you. You don't just gloss over it. So, this is very important in dealing with people. Okay, so let's say you show up to give a music lesson to somebody, and the student says, uh, I hurt my thumb. I don't know how well I can play piano today. You say, okay, let's just work around that. We'll try not to use the thumb today. See, you're handling him. So he says, okay. You don't just say, I don't care. I'm here to teach you and you better do it. That's not handling the person. See, that's not really a response. So this requires intelligence. You have to handle the person. Your wife says, I don't feel like being married to you anymore. Handle it. Say, why? What's going on? What's the deal? What have I done? See? Now she's willing to talk to you because you are handling her. You're not sweeping it under the carpet. See?
Yeah.
Now that might take hours. It might take hours and hours for you to handle that.
Yeah.
She might have a whole laundry list of complaints.
Get ready for it.
That's okay because there's no time limit on any of these. Sometimes you have to really encourage the person for a long time to get him to be willing to communicate. Sometimes you need to observe for a long time to figure out what's going on with this person. So you might not get in the first 10 seconds. You might want to observe the person for a while.
Yeah.
So there's no time limit on these. But don't skip a level.
Yeah.
That is why it's very important to allow time for communication. So, for example, I had a long career as a human development engineer, hundreds of people. And I would always say, allow enough time for the session to occur.
Yeah.
Okay? You can't have your car on a parking meter and have to go out there in a half hour. You can't be saying, well, in a half hour, I have to go pick up my son. If that's the case, I wouldn't have the session. I would just say, okay, well, you're too busy today. We'll try it another day.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would know some of these things might take time. I had a client once, very capable person, successful, beautiful, smart, impressive person. This like when this person walked in the room, whoa, I'm dealing with somebody here. Okay. So one day we did some work together. She became a client of mine. And one day she got onto some terrible trauma that she had experienced. And we spent a long time crying, all that stuff. Big, big deal. I had to really handle it. I couldn't handle that in 10 minutes, you see?
Yeah.
So that is why I would say, look, you got to have at least a few hours for this because we don't know what we're going to get into. I've had sessions that went 8 or 10 hours with people. You step on a landmine and that person's subconscious.
Yeah.
And it's like a huge thing. And in fact, I've had sessions where it went so long, we had to end the session, go to sleep, and come back the next day and continue it.
Wow.
Now, that's pretty rare. But it has happened. So, as I'm saying, you want to have communication? Don't think it's going to happen in 30 seconds or 2 minutes. It might not. Now, if you're observing, you can see. So if I get some client in and I can see he's not really ready for this thing we're going to take up today, I won't broach it. I won't do it. I'll say, well, I can see that you're a little worn out from such and such or whatever, and we'll do something light.
Yeah.
So after you handle the person and the response, the person is okay, whatever it is, then you terminate the cycle. You say, okay, thank you, very good, right?
Yeah.
So you go into some government office, right? And you're trying to get a permit. And you go through these 7 steps, you get to the end, you got your permit, you say, thank you. See, it's an acknowledgement. It
Yeah.
ends the cycle. You don't just walk away. That's not good communication. People like to be acknowledged.
Yep.
So when you have a little exchange with somebody, or even a lengthy exchange, at the end, there should be a termination. Okay. So if I was dealing with a client and the client has some big epiphany, oh, I just figured out why my marriage is on the rocks. Bop-a-da-bop-a-da-bop. He might go on for 20 minutes about that. And when you see the person is done, you say, very good. Thank you for telling me that. Is it okay with you if we end off on this? Okay. All right. We're done with this. See, you terminate it.
Yeah.
We're done with that. And then you can go on either to the next session or the next item in the agenda or whatever it is. So this is how you communicate. And as I said in the chapter, I give hypothetical examples of how to do this. It requires mental presence. That's level 1. And then once you're present, then you can observe. And if you don't observe, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. You're going to make big mistakes. Then you compose yourself. You show yourself to be a poised person. People don't want to communicate to you if you're going to fall apart. There are some people, they're so neurotic. If you say boo, they start crying. See, those people don't have composure. See, so that's not a safe person to communicate to.
Yeah.
You're not going to lay some heavy trip on a person like that. So when I look at the person, I show them that I'm a composed person. I'm not going to be easily upset. I'm ready to pay attention to this cycle of communication. And then you encourage the person, whatever that is. For example, you meet a relative, you might hug the person. You might kiss the person on the cheek. You might shake hands. That's an encouragement. You go home to visit your parents, you shake hands with your dad, you say, hi, Dad, good to see you. You're encouraging him.
Yeah.
Then you can express yourself. Tell him whatever it is you want to say. See? Now, then you have to watch for response. What's his response? Do you have to handle that response? If you say to somebody, you say to your wife, what do you say we go out and take care of the garden today? You have to see what she says about that. She might say, I'm really not up to that today. I'm beat. See, you got to handle that. Now, one way you can handle is saying, okay, I'll do it without you. Or you can say, oh, don't worry about it. I'll just do it myself. Or you can say, well, you want to take a little rest and we'll do it later. See, these are all ways of handling it.
Yeah.
And then see what she says. If she says, yeah, I think if I take a nap, I'll be okay. All right, we'll talk later, right? See, you've handled it. You don't ride roughshod over the person. That's not communication. That's what Nazis do.
Yeah.
So you handle there's a response, and you handle it. It has to be appropriate. Now, 6 is the most difficult of all because the person throws something at you. You're not ready for that.
Mm.
You don't know about that. You go in and you say, what do you say we settle up the money you owe me? Okay? And see what the response is. If he says, okay, and takes out his wallet, great. But if he says, well, I've been meaning to talk to you about this. I got big money problems. Oh, tell me about that. See, you're handling it. Now,
Mhm.
this might end up with, I just don't have enough money to give it to you today, but I think tomorrow I will. It's okay. See, you've handled it. You haven't alienated the person. It's okay. Why don't you just come over to my house tomorrow with the money when you get great? See, he's going to be happy with that. You've handled him.
Mm.
And then he gives you the money the next day and you say, thank you very much. That's the termination. That cycle is done.
Yeah.
So that is how good communication works. Now, if you look at a bad relationship, it will be filled with violations of these.
Mm.
Filled. So when you look at dysfunctional families, dysfunctional couples, dysfunctional workmates, you see these levels are ajar. They're
Yeah.
missing. Because if you don't do these, because remember, it's reach, withdraw, reach, withdraw, reach, withdraw, reach. So it starts with a reach, it ends with a reach. But you have these 3 levels in there where you withdraw. See? You present yourself, then you withdraw. Then you show your poise, then you withdraw. Then you express yourself, then you withdraw. Then you terminate it, which is an outflow.
Hmm.
So you want to, people get 4 and 7 mixed up all the time. If somebody comes to me and says, I'm having a lot of trouble with this, I say, tell me about that. See, that's an encouragement.
Yeah.
But if somebody says, let's do this tomorrow, I say, okay, that's termination.
Mm.
It's completely different.
Yeah.
But it's not clear to me why people get this mixed up. I think it's because they don't understand the concept. Because
Yeah.
this is really common sense. It's just that I broke it down into a way that's easy to teach, it's easy to learn, it's easy to master. And if you genuinely observe your communications or another's communications, you can see where it's broken down.
Huh.
So, in industrialized society, most of the time, when we get in trouble, it's because of a failure of this scale.
Yeah.
So, a cop stops you, right? You want to be present.
Mhm.
He wants to see that you're paying attention, right? Then you observe. You're trying to see is he unhappy? See what his demeanor is. Then you show him poise, that you're not flustered, you're not angry, right?
Mhm.
Then you encourage him. You say, how may I help you today, officer? What seems to be the issue here? See, that's an encouragement.
Yeah.
And then he will tell you something. It's like at level 5. Well, looks to me like you're speeding here. See? Now, you're going to have a response to that. Now, some cops are jerks,
Mm.
but some cops, you can talk to them. But if you're going to be rude to the policeman, there's no place in this scale for rudeness.
No. No.
Rudeness is not part of this. So, anytime you deal with anyone, like for example, I've been in court many times. Somebody screws me out of money, I file a suit against them. Well, there's opposing counsel. Very often I'm in there without an attorney. I use these 7 levels on the judge and on opposing counsel. Opposing counsel says, well, I have some concerns about this settlement offer, right? You go right into 6. Okay, tell me about that. What seems to be the issue here? See, and he says, well, I don't know that we could come up with this money right away, but if you're willing to take $10,000 a month, then I think we can do this. You see?
Yeah.
So you say, okay, we'll do it that way. See? And then, as you said, you shake hands on the deal. You acknowledge it. Okay, good. We got a deal. So each of these is actually fairly obvious if you know what you're looking for. So a lot of the trouble people have is because they don't know about this.
Yeah.
So, like, if I go to talk to some guy and he looks to me like he's stoned out on something, drugs, or alcohol, he's not present. Well, that's the end of that conversation. I might say, all right, look, after you sober up, I'll come back. We'll talk then.
Yeah.
So you need to look at these different things.
I noticed that step. I noticed that step 2 is. I see this all the time, or I hear about it all the time. That there's a lot of people that kind of avoid step 2, the observation or the inspection, and they obviously do a knee-jerk reaction and
That's right.
and reply with this just like complete rudeness and
Right.
don't even want to talk about it.
That's right. They're not communicating.
Yeah.
There are many people, their mouths are moving, blah, 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 saying things, but they're not communicating. And I'll give you an example. Donald Trump was president for 4 years. Okay? Now, his opponents are saying outrageous things. None of them ever happened when he was president. It'll be the last election. What do you mean he was elected? We're having another election.
Right.
He's going to be a dictator. Well, wait a minute now. Was he a dictator? I didn't see that he was a dictator. Whether or not I agreed with everything he did, I didn't see. So, these people are not observing.
Yeah.
It's like, look at the facts here. Look at the guy. What did he do? What did he say? What were his actions? And once you inspect, then you're going down the path of communication rather than just being crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hearing these crazy anti-Semitic people rant about the Jews, it's just crazy. Now,
Yeah.
if I were to bump into somebody who said, I don't really like Jews, I'd say, really, tell me about that. See?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had a bad experience with a Jewish store owner. Oh, what about all the other Jews? How are your experiences with them? Okay. Well, maybe your problem is only with this one guy, not with all the Jews. You see?
Yeah.
So you're kind of getting him to observe. And once he observes, he has the chance to have some poise and say, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I could see that I was sort of generalizing this. One of the things I figured out a long time ago is that anytime a person is upset, there's a generality involved.
Yeah.
People are generalizing about Trump. They generalize. Now there is just plain lying. That's another thing. But, for example, well, if you don't want to vote for Trump, okay, but what was the rate of inflation when he left office? Do you know? It was 1.4. See? And since he left office, we've lost almost 20% of the value of our money.
Mm.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
That's a fact. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm just saying that's a fact. So there are people who just lie. Like Biden said, well, inflation was 9% when I took over. This is factually incorrect. So, you have to sort of, when you deal with crazy people, you get crazy stuff. Some guy in an abortion clinic, you're all going to go to hell, Well,
Yeah.
this guy's not really observing. Because if he observed, he would see not all of these women who have the abortions are the same. Some of them are religious people. Some of them are not. Some of them are libertines. Some of them are not. You see, some of them have problems that you don't know anything about.
Yeah.
So when you generalize, you can't communicate. Because communication is a personal thing. It's between two people. Or it could even be between a speaker and an audience.
Mm.
Because if you're doing public speaking, I've done a lot of public speaking.
Yeah.
You have to use the same group of sequences. You have to be present and you have to observe, okay, who is this crowd? What do they look for? See, do these people look like Democrats or Republicans?
Yeah.
Do these people look like angry people or do they look like relaxed people? See, you observe. And then
Especially if it's a full audience. If it's a full audience and there's a lot of people there to see you, they're receptive because otherwise they wouldn't be there.
Right, but there are flavors of this,
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can sometimes you'll see an entertainer will walk out and he says, "This is a great audience today." What is he seeing? This is his job. Like Groucho Marx, he would walk out when he did You Bet Your Life. There would be a studio audience, see, and he would sort of get an idea of who this audience is, and sort of adjust to it.
Yeah.
Johnny Carson did the same thing. So if you are a public speaker, you observe. Then you have to be poised. You have to show you're not somebody who's going to be disturbed easily. Then you have to encourage them. Say, thank you very much for showing up tonight. You all look very bright and happy today. Or something. You have to encourage them. See? Then you lay a trip on them. And then you tell them what you came there to say. And then response. Well, that's where the question and answer period comes in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Any questions about what I just said? Yeah, well, what about the taxes? Is this going to make the taxes go up? You have to handle that. You can't just be angry and storm off the stage because they contradicted you.
Mm-hmm.
So then you come to determination. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. God bless. Or God bless America. Or, you want to terminate it. Thank you very much. See? And you'll see a good speaker goes through these 7 things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you miss any one of them, you will pay a price.
Uh-huh.
I've been watching people pay the price for this my whole life.
Yep. Yep.
Smart people have some kind of an instinct about this. And they have good communication skills. So those people do well with people.
Mm-hmm.
Like a good salesman. A good salesman better have good communication skills.
Oh, yeah.
If your prospect says something to you, well, they're trying to sell an electric car, right?
Mm.
He says, well, what if I want to go more than 400 miles and there's no charging station around? You better handle that.
Mm-hmm.
So, otherwise, he's gone.
Here's an extra
You
battery.
better say, well, now there are 8,321 charging stations in California. Oh, really? See? You better be ready to handle it somehow.
Yeah.
And then, at the end, he might say, well, I'm not ready to buy. Okay, thank you very much. See, you terminate it. You haven't made an enemy. You don't say to them, what are you wasting my time for if you're not ready to buy? That's not a termination, that's an insult.
Yeah.
So this is acting like a lady or a gentleman is a big part of this. But no matter how gentlemanly or ladylike you are, if you don't do these 7 steps, you will have trouble.
Mm-hmm.
When you have the trouble, might not be right away, might not break out into a fist fight, but you never hear from the person again.
Yeah. Yeah. And also I realize too, is like, especially if you want to gain respect on both sides, I have this level of handling criticism. Because, I mean, that's an art too. I
That's
know
right.
people who can't handle criticism and they will blow up. And then there's those that can handle it because it is an art.
That's right.
Just
Well,
and
blowing
that
up is not in the
takes a level
scale.
of observation.
Yeah. Like if somebody says to me, what are you, some kind of a nut? I might say to them, well, why would you say that? Or what makes you think that? You have some concern here that you want to discuss? See,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to argue with the guy. See, I'm, depending on where you are in the cycle, that might be part of an encouragement. Okay, you're entitled to your opinion. See, you don't fight with the guy. So this is really, really useful and important.
Yeah.
Any questions?
No. Let
And
me.
I hasten to add, in the chapter, I give exercises. There is a corresponding exercise for each one of these 7 levels.
Hmm.
So if you want to know how to do encouragement, there's a whole drill. How to practice encouragement. So you build up the skill.
Yeah. I've got the book right here. Yeah, scenario. You give this. You give the scenario. Scenario 1, scenario 2.
Right.
Interaction exercise.
Right.
Yeah.
So are we ready for the next scale?
We can hold off since we got probably just short of 15 minutes.
Okay.
I like to cover as much as possible as far as anything when it comes to the chapters.
Okay.
But, we can go maybe with the time that is left.
Yes.
When it comes to the book, let's kind of end the show by maybe giving any endpoints and stuff like that. Any information about the book that we've yet to share or that you've yet to share? Any updates about the book? Anything
Okay.
new that's coming out that might?
Okay, well, the main thing is I want to invite your listeners to my website, which is septemics.com, SEPTEMICS, where you can see what many readers have said, what many journalists have written about this, what the reviews are. You can read sections of the book itself. You can listen to a 15-minute pre-recorded introduction to Septemics. And there's also an essay on there in which I explain, it's entitled Achieve Your Goals Faster and Easier with Septemics. And you can read the essay, and it explains how it works, why it works, and how you can use it to improve your life. So go to the website. There's a lot of stuff there. I'm not talking about it all because there's a lot of stuff. And just check it out and find out what this is about. And if you go there with a clear mind, you'll see that this is revolutionary.
Yeah.
This is a whole new approach, because essentially the book is a textbook on an entirely new subject.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not some version of something else, and this is not some small thing. This is big, which is why we could only cover one scale in almost an hour today.
Yeah, I mean it's dynamic. Give a little bit of backstory on Septemics, on the infancy, on the development, how this came about.
Well, I worked for 40 years as a human development engineer, helping my clients one-on-one using engineering principles and techniques helping them to do better in life. And all of my clients benefited from the work we did. But beyond that, I started to notice incidentally that I could predict the outcome of the session.
Hmm.
I never told that to anyone, but I made notes. And as the decades rolled by, I came to realize that the client would be at a specific level on a specific scale, and that I already knew, although he knew nothing about this. And so he would, as a result of the session, go from the level he came in on to the next level up. And that happened thousands and thousands of times. And every time it did, it verified my hypothesis. So eventually, this developed into a philosophical science. And anybody who can read English reasonably well, who wants to improve himself or his life, can use this book to do it. So I invite you to do so.
Wow. It is revolutionary. I'm surprised I haven't yet seen anything out there. I mean, there's other types of different models in metaphysical terms and physics terms and stuff like that, but I have not seen anything like this. So.
Right. There's nothing like this. It's an entirely new subject, which I just observed empirically and wrote down. And because of my polymathic qualifications, I was able to see it for what it was.
Yeah.
And so then I spent 25 years working on the book, which is why the book works so well. People get this. This is not obscure. You show one of these scales to somebody, if it's relevant to him, and he'll say, "Oh, yeah, I see. This is cool." He'll get it.
Yeah.
And that's because it's natural law. This is all just natural law, like the Fibonacci sequence or the 3 laws of motion. And because it's natural law, people get it. If they can read English reasonably well and they're interested in helping themselves and others. There, of course, are many people who are not interested in helping themselves or others. That would include psychopaths and sociopaths, professional criminals, war criminals, serial murderers, etc.
Narcissists.
Crazy people, So really only about half the human race is really interested in improving oneself or others.
Yeah.
And that's something I actually calculated from the book after the fact of seeing the materials. I was able to calculate that.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those people, if you're watching this program, you're probably one of those people. Because otherwise, why would you watch this?
Yeah, right.
So I say get the book and use it to make your life better.
Absolutely. Definitely get the book. Have you any testimonials and stuff, or have there been any establishments or institutions or institutes that have been kind of giving you any feedback on?
Well, I've gotten
the
a
implementation
lot
of
of
it?
feedback from individuals, and if you go to the website, you'll see that. You'll see feedback from readers, from journalists, the reviews. I mean, there's a review of this by an experienced psychotherapist who has a master's degree in psychology. Very positive. That's very different from the review from a person who doesn't have that qualification.
Yeah.
But this is universally applicable. So anybody who is interested can use this. It's not hard to use.
Yeah. Anybody who wants to improve their life, improve their human ability around others,
Right.
business life, personal life, anything and everything. I mean, be part of society in a
If it
decent
has
manner.
anything to do with humans, this book is relevant.
Yeah. 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 Jim,
Thank you, Paul.
thank you again, my friend.
See you next week.
And until next week, we will see you then. Take care.